Hello? Alright, we had a very unfortunate, as soon as I came on, my internet died. So that sucks. Uh, but we're back. We're so back. Hello. I'm so sorry, you guys. I love when this happens. My favorite. Yeah, I borked. My stream borked. As soon as I came on, I was like, hello guys, and then my internet died. I'll just edit the link, I suppose. Alright, and I ping the Discord again, which is so annoying for you guys, I know. How are we doing today, by the way? I feel like it's been a little while since I streamed. Also, thank you, Liam, for the super chat. Good luck. And also, Vex Fidel, I did see your super chat before my internet died. We are now connected over hotspot, so goodbye, data plan. So yeah, thank you as well for the good luck charm to Australian buckaroos, two dollary dues, as they say, to Vex, who sent it before the before this first stream died. Whew. Anyway, so today, oh, Sora dancing to Meme Maker for 3 minutes. It's a glorious. For those of you that are just joining us now, I had it's gone. It's gone, but like this is my this is what I was using for a little starting soon thing. It might make a return. But the credit should be down in the description. It's by Pow 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 on Tumblr. It's one of my favorite little pieces of Sora fan art. It's so good. Anyway. Yes, I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. Alright. So there's this video. Should we keep the Me channel music? Let's keep it. Let's keep it going, just because it's fun. Because I'm muting the audio in the actual video, because the actual video's audio is terrible. Hello, Zane. And hello, Mangosteen, and hello, Dopey Artist. Alright. And hi, Dark Matter. Who else is saying hi? Let's go live chat. Yeah, the real Kingdom Hearts was the sweet dance moves we learned along the way. Alright. Let's get started. My window at... There we go. So how this works. Every 6 seconds, the video will move on to another question. Speed up or slow down, but the idea is to pause. And then there's a numbered list in the description for your answers. I'm not going to do that. I wish that the list had just been written out, but whatever. I'll just use it like a slideshow, basically. And of course, we need the fresco. Thank you, Sparrow. I am very Sigma. Thank you for noticing. So I know a couple of the questions. I was kind of watching a couple other people respond to this list. And I was like, you know what? I want to answer this myself. I got the idea, like I've seen it being passed around a little bit, but I got the idea that made me want to do it today from Sir Sick, who has a really funny skeptic channel. Like, he kind of presents himself as like the old guard skeptic that like, haha, Christian stupid, but he's actually like seems to be a pretty decent guy. He's funny. And he's humble, I would say, when he's not joking about how he's amazing. But, you know, he's just like a silly guy that I enjoy watching from time to time, clown on young Earth creationists and answers in Genesis and their ilk. So we're going to do some of that today. I haven't done this kind of video in a little while, but I thought it would be fun. I haven't researched any of the answers to these in as good faith as possible. If something is particularly stupid... And we're so back. Okay, first question. Why don't you believe in God? I used to, but I honestly... Ooh. Thank you for the super chat, Boggle. Wow, very generous. So a teacher once asked her students their favorite fairy tale. Little Susie said Goldilocks. Little Timmy said Hansel and Gretel. Then the kid in the back said the Book of Revelations. And that kid is Group Senator. I feel like that's a meme that I don't understand, but... as a kid, I very much was a full believer. I didn't deconstruct until after high school, so I would be the kid in the back being like, no, the earth was totally created 6,000 years ago and Noah's flood was a thing. So I did believe. I was a true believer at one point. I thought like Ken Hand and Ken Tovin, all those guys were super smart and had all the answers. Now I don't, obviously. I haven't for over a decade. Probably about, yeah, going on 14 years now that I haven't believed, so anyway. But basically the reason that I personally don't believe in God is A, a lack of evidence, and B, if he was real, a lot of things that have happened don't really make sense, you know? And it just seems like it's a psychological phenomenon and a lot of coping. There's no reason for me to believe that God does exist. This is kind of like you're asking me to prove a negative here. And it's like, you're the one that has the burden of proof as somebody saying that God exists. Like, that's like me saying, there is not a multicolored or I believe that there is a glowing iridescent tarantula with a million eyes somewhere in the solar system, and you can't prove that I'm wrong. Like, that's a ridiculous thing to claim. And me saying that you have to look through the entire solar system and inspect, because it's like, well, we didn't find it on Saturn, we didn't find it on Uranus, we didn't find it on Pluto. It's like, you just weren't looking in the right place at the right time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't ask somebody to prove the negative of an outrageous claim. But yeah, the reason I personally don't believe in God is just because I don't see a reason to. And I think that, based on what I've learned over the years, there's so many things that I was taught growing up by the people that told me God was real that, like, are demonstrably false. That why would I believe them about this one little thing when everything else is so obviously a lie? You know what I mean? There's like, everything you've told me about this person, this entity is untrue. Like, I can demonstrate that, and I have so much evidence for that, that when you still ask me to believe, it's like, well, why would I when everything else has been a lie, you know? Anyway. That's our next question. Where is your evidence that God doesn't exist? I mean, see what I was literally just talking about. There is no evidence that he does. And again, you're asking me to prove a negative. That's not really how this works. Let's go. So, Yeah, there is no evidence that he does, therefore I'm not going to believe something that I have no evidence to exist, that he exists. Okay. Why do I hate God? I don't hate. How can I hate something that doesn't exist? I don't really like the idea of the Christian God because I think it doesn't make sense to create a world in which evil can happen and still be considered a benevolent entity. And even if you want to argue about free will, it's like, okay, so like you gave these creatures that you created free will, and you punish them for choosing the things that you don't want them to do. It doesn't really follow through. My audio's a bit funky. My audio's a bit funky. How dare you? I'm cutting out a bit. Hold on. I have a new mic set up, so I might be... Filters. These gates. Should I just turn the noise gate off? How's that? Is that better? But yeah. Also, yeah, Dan, you bring up a good point. I don't hate God, I hate Christianity. Hate is still a very strong word, but as a group of people, they have caused so much pain and suffering um for a very long time that, like, yeah, I have problems with that, and that should be enough. All right, next question. Do you believe in the existence of Jesus? This is an interesting one because for a while I believed, yeah, sure, Jesus of Nazareth was probably a guy that existed and said some things and maybe even said some good things. And then over the years I was like, okay, maybe he wasn't perfect. He was kind of a bit nuts and culty. And recently, as of this year, I've realized that the figure Jesus Christ or Jesus of Nazareth, he's probably an amalgamation of multiple guys. Thank you for the super chat, Vex. Quim, it's me, the Christian God. Why do you hate me? Because the Christian God killed my grandma. I don't think... Yeah, exactly. I don't think Jesus the man... Even then, there was a while where I was like, oh yeah, as a man, he was probably like a spiritual leader, but like even then, historically, the current theory is that there was multiple guys doing similar, like, weird culty things, and Jesus of Nazareth is an amalgamation of all of those guys. There was like a lot of prophets doing that sort of thing historically at the time, so I think he was an amalgamation, and that's why there's so many inconsistencies in the stories, because it was probably like little things that many people were saying, and it was just kind of turned into one clump of a person. All right. If no, where's your evidence that Jesus didn't exist? Again, asking you to prove a negative, but like I was saying before, there's evidence to suggest that there was like a lot of people doing what Jesus was doing at the time, making those claims, doing like the whole faith healing, like preaching to the layman, like pulling into sects of weird offshoots of Judaism, death cult stuff. So because we already know that there's a bunch of people like that, we know for a fact that there's people like that back then doing that. you know, the figure or figures that Jesus was based on is probably, you know, one of those guys. And there is no evidence to the contrary. Isn't Jesus himself on a census from that era? I mean, like, biblically at the time, his name would have been Joshua, basically. And there was a lot of Joshuas at the time. So, again, probably an amalgamation of many guys. Oh. Why do I hate Jesus? I don't hate Jesus. Actually, oh. Hold on. Yeah, I don't hate Jesus. I actually, for a very long time, still liked Jesus, even after I had deconstructed. And I was like, yeah, he's probably spreading a good message. Shame that Christians don't really hold it up. But at this time, it's like a lot of the things he was doing was a little bit death culty, getting people to abandon their worldly possessions and like join this really extreme religion that was like the end of days is coming. Like he was a quack. He was a grifter. And I still don't really hate him. I think it's been, you know, he's too far back for me to really hold any hatred. I don't hate anybody really. But I don't think that I sort of visualize him as this sort of really generous, like kind, good-hearted person that was spreading like positive words anymore, like I once did, for very long, probably up until last year. I thought that. Yeah. Why do I hate all these poor religious figures? Why? Yeah, I would have pronounced Yeshua, but like the Romanization would be Joshua today. But anyway. Have I ever read the Bible? Oh, buddy. Yes, multiple times. I used to be one of those kids that... This is so cringe. So, at Bible camp, we used to do things where we would, like, name, like, oh, like, Mark such and such. I don't remember anything now. It's all scrubbed from my brain. Or, like, Isaiah 4:11 or Genesis or Exodus, and we would just say it, and the challenge would be who could remember that verse. So yes, I've read the Bible. More than I think most people have. More than I think a lot of Christians have, to be honest. And I read it with the intention to understand it. Actually, Revelations was my favorite book because I thought that the mythology in it was really interesting. So, and I liked it even after deconstructing. I thought it was, I thought it was bullshit, but I thought it was really interesting, and I still think it's really interesting. Anyway. Do you believe people have souls? No, I don't. Not in so much that I believe that the soul is like a tangible entity or even an entity at all. I believe that there's something special that makes a person a person. I'm not sure what that is, and I don't think that's a soul, nor would I describe it as a metaphysical phenomenon. I'm really excited. I hope that I'm still alive when we learn more about what that is and what gives that, you know, because right now, basically what we, like, if you had, like, a perfectly preserved human brain and, like, it wasn't damaged, you would not be able to bring back the person that it was before they died, right? If there was no damage to it, like, this theoretical, like, all the cells were intact, etc., etc. And it's because, it's not just, like, things are physically stored in the brain, it's that there is an electric signal that's constantly going on, and, like, memory and thought and personality is also, like, partly that, like, electrical phenomenon. I guess you could call that a soul if you wanted to, that sort of, like, energy that keeps our brains moving, but I don't know if I would, I don't know if I would personally say that it is. But, like, if if you were to have a body and all of that like energy was to be taken out and then it was completely inert and stopped working, and then you put energy back in, that would not be the same person, which I think is extremely interesting. Yes, I've heard that there's like people talking about like something like a chemical reaction happening upon death, or like there being like this small amount of mass lost when somebody dies. But we do know that energy does have mass. So it's probably that getting dispersed, I'm assuming. It you know, chemically and physically what's going on is very interesting. And like I said, I really hope that I live long enough for to be around when we really understand that. That's one of the mysteries of the universe that I'm very interested in, but I don't think there's a spiritual reason, so to speak. If no, where's your evidence? Okay, I so I was listening to a podcast, like Alex O'Connor's podcast, who's like a skeptic YouTuber, and he had Rhett on from Rhett and Link / Good Mythical Morning, if you've ever seen those guys. And they were talking about this. They weren't talking about these questions, but this came up. So if I believe in evolution, and I believe that humans have a soul, there is somewhere, if you can't believe in those two individual things, in the human soul and in the idea that evolution is true. They don't make sense. And if you, I'm about to ruin your life if you're a Christian who believes in evolution. I'm about to destroy your life, and you're gonna hate this. So let's put it in perspective of this. So at one point, there was a creature that wasn't a human as we know it. Not really. It did not have a soul. Its child, however, went on to have a soul. But because of how evolution works, these two animals would be basically the same thing, because evolution is very, very slow, progressive change over time. But if there is a soul and only humans have it and it's unique to humans, then you have to draw a line between this thing has a soul and this thing doesn't. So at one point, there was an animal who gave birth to a human, and that animal didn't have a soul, and its experiences and its suffering and its pain and its happiness doesn't mean anything metaphysically, but its child, who was basically the exact same, did. And even it's like, oh, well, I believe everything has a soul, as Dan is saying. When did we start having souls? You know, was it when we developed a circulatory system? Was it when we first got neurons? When we first got DNA? When we first became eukaryotes? Like, where is that delineating sort of line that you draw? Like, you can't. There's nowhere that you can draw that line where, yes, the child has a soul, but the mother doesn't. And you go all the way back to when we were just like a collection of chemicals that weren't really alive. And like, when is the soul introduced? You know? I think that we developed personalities, and that's especially for social animals. It's very good for us to have personalities and be unique, because it makes us all feel special as individuals, which makes us want to preserve one another. I want to preserve Swampling because Swampling is special and there's nobody else like Swampling. I want to preserve Sam because there's nobody else like Sam. Or I want to preserve all these people because they're unique, and losing this person would be a loss to me personally. And I evolved to do that because I'm a social animal, and as a social animal, we rely on the protection of one another. But anyway. Do you reject all gods or just the Christian God? Yes, all gods. All gods. I don't think that there's anything out there beyond what we can basically feel and touch and see. And I believe that eventually all answers will come about and we'll understand everything given enough time if we don't explode ourselves. And we'll have all the answers that we want someday. Why do I care so much about what other people believe in? I don't, really. At the end of the day. I don't care if you think that, you know, Lord of the Rings really actually happened and it's a real actual part of our past. Cool. What I do have a problem with is the indoctrination of children, into religions that ultimately can hurt them or can cause them to form negative opinions about other people. What about low tier God? If that's a meme, I don't get it. If it's genuine, no, I still don't believe in any form of God. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in spirits. I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in angels. I don't believe in, like, anything like that. I think it's all bullshit. I just don't think it's true. Yeah, this is such a weird bad faith question. The previous one was, yeah. I also care what actions you take based on your beliefs. If you're going to say that I'm not allowed to dress a certain way or love certain people or eat certain things or like just be my genuine authentic self, that's when I start caring. You can still believe whatever you want, but it shouldn't affect my life, and it shouldn't affect the life of people that are vulnerable and like you have power over, period. Question 12. Where do you get your sense of right and wrong from? Well, you see, from society, from my parents. But the reason I have a sense of morality is, once again, because I'm a social animal and I evolved to preserve myself and the rest of my species so that we could continue living. If human beings didn't have an aversion to murder and we just killed each other indiscriminately, we would not have gotten to where we are to have this conversation. Logically, it just would not have happened. The fact that we are here to talk about it is evidence that we evolved morality to preserve ourselves. And if you didn't have a god telling you what to do and right from wrong, are you saying that you would like start killing people or something? Why do you need God to tell you what's right and wrong? Like, you should know that already. You should be able to be like, well, I don't want to get hurt, so I'm not going to hurt other people. Like, that's, you know. What evidence would persuade you that God exists? Two things. If he were to come down and talk to me and tell me that he's real right now, if I had an actual personal spiritual experience. And there's one other thing. So Ken Ham is making a recreation of the Tower of Babel right next to his Ark encounter, which is like a recreation of Noah's Ark. I don't want anybody to get hurt, but I think it would be really funny if it collapsed. And if it collapsed, I would go to church every fucking Sunday. But yeah, that's where we are so far with it. But yes, I would start believing in God if this fell down. And I don't want anybody to get hurt. Again, in middle of the night, it just collapses into a pile of rubble. Would be fucking hilarious. And I will start going to church every Sunday. Where am I? There we go. Yes, he is recreating the... Hello? Where's my... Time for religious trauma discourse. Thank you for the super chat, Anthony. I'm not getting my audio anymore. You guys are getting... Hold on. What the heck? There we go. But yes, if Ken Hand's Tower of Babel collapsed and nobody was hurt, I would start going to church. That's my funny answer. But I would have to have a genuine... Oh, here we go. If you of all people started believing in God, I would have no choice but to as well. You should make those decisions for yourself, but I appreciate your belief in me. Why are you against the idea of faith? I'm not necessarily, but I think that, like, faith in what? Faith in a higher power? Like, not for me, but if it helps you sleep at night, sure, as long as you're not hurting anybody. I have nothing against faith. You know, I have faith in human beings as a species. I think we're gonna be okay. Whiston God, would you believe in me for a Fresca? Maybe. If I got unlimited Fresca. I believe in Fresca. That's what my faith is. Yeah. I guess a blind faith. Yeah, I think Dark Matters are on the money there. I think you should be able to explain why you believe the things you believe. A lightning bolt settles all theological arguments, and he has apparently not stumbled upon this clever rhetorical device. Yeah. I think it would be very easy for God to prove to me he exists. And I think that, like, we shouldn't be expected to believe. If we are creatures who ask questions and are naturally curious and want answers, you know, why would you create us to be curious and skeptical and then, like, be mad when we're say that you have to have faith and not ask any questions? That doesn't make any sense to me. But yeah, I'm not against belief in faith necessarily. I just, you know, as long as it's not hurting anybody. Why do you attack Christians? Do I? I don't think I attack Christians. I try to be pretty polite to people that are religious in my community. Like, as long as they're not saying anything that I think would be harmful. Yeah, sure. Like, knock yourself out. But also, if you get to talk about your beliefs, I get to talk about mine. I get to talk about my experience with God if you get to talk about yours. And my experience is different from yours, and you might not like it. But if you get to talk about how your relationship to faith and spirituality turned out for you, I get to talk about how mine turned out for me. That's fair. That's giving us both equal space to talk about it. And you have to get over that as a Christian. Somebody talking about their own personal beliefs and experiences, even if it's against yours, even though it contradicts your own, you have to get over that. You have to, like, accept that there are some people who deconstructed or who was hurt by religion, even if it helped you and it gives you comfort. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Hisaki Kentai. Bro, not even just because faith in you, but because you're a super mega ultra atheist. Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. I'm like one fedora away from a TJ Kirk moment. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Next question. Why do I hate Christians? I don't really hate Christians. Some of my best friends are Christian. I have people in my family that are Christians. And again, it's fine if that's what you believe, but if you get to be a Christian, I get to be an atheist, you know? And you should let me just be what I am in peace. I don't really like how sometimes Christians will do things in the name of God that are harmful, or like they'll indoctrinate people into harmful beliefs. But again, as long as you're not hurting anybody, as long as you're teaching your kids scientifically sound information and giving them access to proper education, a Monday through Friday, you can go ahead and take them to church on Sunday. That's fine with me. I'm full of hatred every day. I hate everything. It fuels me. Why do you mock and scoff at Christians? I don't for most of them, but it's because y'all do stupid shit like make lists like this. You just 100 questions for atheists. This fucking question answers itself. That's why I mock people like you. You do most of the work for me. You're asking for it. It's funny. Honestly. Anyway. Question 18. Are you aware that you are fulfilling a biblical prophecy? 2 Peter 3 verses 3 through 4. Know this first of all, that in the last days mockers will come with their mocking, following after their own lusts and saying, where is this promise of his coming? For ever since the fathers fell asleep, all continue just as it was from the beginning of creation. People have been saying this since before this verse was written. And like saying something outwardly ridiculous and then being like, but people are not going to believe me. It's like saying like, haters will say that he has not risen. Haters will say that there will be no second coming. Haters will say that he was not the Son of God. Like, that's what this is. That's what that is. So, it's just preemptively prepping you to be like, nuh-uh, I'm not a hater. Like, that's all this is. I am aware, but like, of course, I mean, like, you don't need to be like one of history's great thinkers to say that if I make an outrageous claim, there are going to be people that doubt me. Yeah, no freaking kidding. No way. No shit, Sherlock. Of course. Thank you for the super chat, Anthony. Sentinel Island don't care much for Christians. Oh, buddy. I don't know if that's something I want to talk about right now. I fulfilled a biblical prophecy when I ate breakfast today. They're vague enough that you can interpret them however you want. Yeah. Question 19. Why do you want to stop people from believing in God? As long as you are not pushing your fundamentalist beliefs that can be easily disproven by basically every area of science that we know, you can believe whatever you want to believe. And it's funny because a lot of Christians will like say that like believing in God is an act of faith, and to be a Christian you must have faith, but then at the same time we'll try to find all this scientific they'll do the apologism thing, which is they'll try to find all this evidence on how God is real, and it's like either it's scientifically sound and you can prove it through science, or it's like something through faith and you're never going to be able to prove it through science. You can't have both. Hey, Krim. Tell Aunt I said, hey, Aunt, tell Krim I said hi. Hi, Aunt. Zaki Kent, I said hi. Um, oh, thank you, Paige. Listening from work best I can, but we're short-staffed tonight, so probably won't get to participate much. Sad face. Yeah, it's okay. It looks like this one's pretty active. I'm surprised. Yeah, I looked at the channel. It has 100 questions for every fucking religion. Great. Yeah, a better question is, why do you care that I don't believe in God? Yeah, that's a good question. Question 2. Oh, here we go, boys. Why do you give Muslims a pass? I don't. I respect their beliefs about as much as Christians. But here's the thing, I'm not an ex-Muslim. I'm an ex-Christian. I can't really speak to the Muslim faith because I don't know much about it. I'm sure there are ex-Muslim atheists that have a lot to say about Islam. I'm sure there are people that are culturally practicing Muslims that may not believe in God in the same way that, like, Muslims that believe in it 100%, like, you know, I'm sure just like Christianity, there are varying degrees of faith and participation. There is for most religions in the world. And I'm going to let the people most familiar and most affected by Islam to criticize it. It's not up to me. And moreover, Muslims are, like, I wouldn't say I give them a pass, but I will, like, I will defend anybody's right to participate in a culture, you know? So I'm not gonna let people badmouth, like, Ramadan or, like, other Muslim holy days, or I won't do the same thing for Judaism or Buddhism or anything. Like, you should be able to practice your culture anywhere you want. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, you should be able to believe in whatever you want. And the thing is that Christianity is considered the default. I don't need to defend your right to celebrate Christmas. You already have that right. It's a statutory holiday in most of the Western world. But Ramadan and other religions' holy days, and I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar with all of them. That's the only one I really know off the top of my head. Those aren't statutory holidays. They are not codified into our legal system or anything. So, like, you often do need to put your foot forward and, like, say that, hey, like, you know, if we're going to, like, celebrate Christmas and we're gonna like put up Christmas decorations, then, you know, like, Muslims and Jews and Buddhists should be able to do the same for their cultures as well. I have respect for all cultures. You kind of start losing me when it's about spirituality. But yeah, this question is crazy. We don't have time to unpack all that. But anyway, let's continue. Why do you pretend to have all of the answers? I don't. I just said that one day I think humans will have all the answers. And I'm very excited to learn them. But I don't think I need to know everything to lead a fulfilling life. I'm pretty content to say to most things. Yeah, that's another good one, Clyde. Christians apply unnecessary pressure on my daily life infinitely more than Muslims. They're just trying to vibe, and that's fine. Ramadan is the fast before the holiday. Eid al-Fitr is the actual holiday it builds up to. Okay, again, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I don't know. I don't pretend to have all the answers. But anyway. Why do you claim to be skeptical when you are unwilling to change your mind? I change my mind all the time. I got here because where I am because I allowed my mind to be changed and shaped. And I think even earlier in the stream, I was like, yeah, like I've had different beliefs about who Jesus probably was as a person over the years, and it's changed very recently, in fact. My mind gets changed all the time. So, yeah, doesn't apply really. Why do you go after Christian museums that are just trying to tell the truth? Because they are getting government funding to spread lies. I wouldn't really care if Mr. Ken Ham was just funding his little project out of his own back pocket with his spending money that he gets from, all his crazy fans. That would be fine. But the fact is, he uses government money to build these things, and they're so untrue. These questions be like, why do you goon to furries? Who said I did? Why? Who do I sue for this slander? Yeah. Every accusation is an admission. But yeah. Yeah, this is somebody being really mad about Ken Ham's ARC exhibit, which is a lie and is funded by the government. Like he built that with your tax dollars. Ken Ham built his creation museum with your tax dollars, guys. And I have a problem with that because it's just demonstrably a lie. How can you claim to be an agnostic and an atheist at the same time? Okay, so this kind of trips people up a little bit. I wonder if I still have that chart. I don't think I do. Hold on a second. I might still have it. Let me hide my Firefox for a second while I try to bring it up. I found it. Okay. So, I made this chart. Ooh. I don't like how that's not centered. Well, you're gonna have to deal with the fact that this isn't centered. So a lot of people think that belief in God kind of looks like this. It's on this like line. On one side, you're an anti-theist, and then you've got atheist, skeptic, scientific, and you've got agnostic in the middle, and that's somebody who doesn't believe or disbelieve. And then on the metaphysical side, you've got spiritual, religious, fundamentalist, cultist. This is what a lot of people think. But really what it looks like is more like this. And you can't see all of the quadrants, but down at the bottom, you've got atheist. Up at the top, you've got theist. On the left, you've got agnostic. On the right, you've got gnostic. So theist to atheist is a belief that there is a God or that there isn't a God. And agnostic versus gnostic is you have knowledge versus you don't have knowledge. So most people who are atheists would describe themselves as an agnostic atheist. There's no way to know for certain if God exists or not. There's no way to know for certain that, I wasn't born last Thursday and all of the memories that I have, I was born with them. That's called last Thursdayism. It's a thought experiment when talking about this sort of thing. Whereas most theists would technically fall under the camp of agnostic theist. They claim to have knowledge that God exists and they believe in God. But there are also people that are like agnostic theists. It's like, I don't know if God is real or not, but I believe that there is something out there. You also have Gnostic atheists who are like, no, I know for a fact that God doesn't exist and I don't have no reason to believe that he does. I can sometimes fall in the middle with the agnostic versus Gnostic truthfully, I can't know. But sometimes I do make Gnostic claims when I probably shouldn't. But yeah, most atheists will fall into the agnostic atheist camp. Ones that are, humble and in good faith in any way. But you can fall in any one of these and also have any one of these beliefs. You can be a fundamentalist Christian that doesn't know for sure that God exists, but thinks that he probably does. You can just be kind of spiritual and maybe, if things can fall anywhere on this map, and this isn't really, a statement one way or the other. But that's how I imagine it. The tail wagging means he's happy. Krim, why did you possess that poor vegan girl? She insulted my mother. That's why. But anyway. These questions be like, why do you... Oh, yeah, I already read that one. You just realized that Krim's tail is wagging. My avatar's tail has been wagging since, like, September, my dude. It's always wagged since like, the end of September. What do you mean? The tail wagging actually means I'm about to pounce. It's a hunting, it's an aggressive, tail wag. More like a cat than a dog, I suppose. Anyway. Doesn't anti-theist just mean being against religion, not a lack of belief? Anti-theists are like, if you believe in God, you're a bad person. You shouldn't believe in God. Nobody should believe in God. The belief in God's in and of itself is bad. And I kind of see where it's coming from. I don't really believe that. I have a lot less I can't help the way I feel, but if somebody tells me that they believe in God, I do get a little bit, okay. I'll accept that and I probably won't say anything, but, like, I have less trust, I suppose, in somebody that believes in God. Just because, like, I don't know, like, how rational of a person you are at that point. And I know that sounds so mean, but I can't help, that's just the way I feel. But I'll do my best to not be an asshole. I try really hard. Alright. Why do you reject people's personal experiences? Alright, I know what this is referring to. So what this is saying is, why do I reject people's personal spiritual experiences? And I do and I don't. I'm sure that people that are like, oh yeah, God spoke to me. I'm sure you heard a voice, and I'm sure you had a very significant moment, and I'm sure you felt a lot of big feelings. But the thing is that the human mind is so incredible. Like, okay, I'm going to tell you guys a little story that happened to me this week. I think it was earlier this week. I had a migraine. Where's my music? Gotta loop it. I had a migraine. And I was like, okay, it's like the mid-morning. I'd already taken my Concerta because I've got ADHD and I'm medicated. And I was like, oh my god, my head hurts, everything hurts, it feels like there's just pain radiating from, like, in between my eyebrows, and somebody's, like, jamming an ice pick into it over and over again. It's just stabbing down through my skull, into the base of my neck, and radiating out through my entire body. It was terrible. And I was like, I need this to stop. Where's my Advil? And I had run out of Advil recently. So I had to buy a new box. We're going somewhere with this, and the box was still sealed. So I was like, okay, I really need to take my pills. I really, really need to take those pills because my head's hurting. But the box is closed. Oh, fuck. Okay, I need to take my pills. And I knew so much in the depths of my heart that I needed to take those pills that in about 5 minutes I was convinced that I'd take them. Because of course I took them because I really need them and my head really hurts and I have Advil. Why wouldn't I have taken them? So I imagined getting up, going to the fridge, getting a drink, opening the drink, taking the pills, and swallowing them. And I had imagined this so vividly, I could feel the sensation sitting in my bed, my head pounding. I could feel that sensation of the pills having gone down my throat. And then I was like, why does my head still hurt? And I look over, and my Advil box is still unopened. And I'm like, oh shit. And right next to my box of the sealed box of the pill bottle is my Concerta. I had them both on my nightstand. And I was like, fuck. Did I just essentially take a double dose of Concerta? Like, I took Concerta instead of Advil, like, and then, like, overdosed on it today. And now I'm gonna be, like, acting like a crazy person and my migraine's probably gonna get worse. And I was like, oh shit. And I, like, sat there and I'm like, okay, I don't feel weird, because usually if I double dose, I've done it by accident a few times because I forget that I already took them. Usually if I accidentally do that, I feel terrible. But I remember taking something, so it had to have been that. And then I looked around and I'm like, where's the drink that I remember getting? Like, I swear I went to the fridge and I poured myself a drink and I sat down and I took the pills, but the cup is nowhere in sight. And so, even though I believed that I got up and I got a drink and I took pills, the evidence of me still having a pounding migraine, the Advil being sealed in a box, me not having a racing heartbeat, and there being no cup or can or drinking vessel on my nightstand or anywhere in sight, means that I must have imagined it. That's the only thing that makes sense, is that I imagined that happening, even though it felt so real. And so that I got up and I got a drink and I actually opened my pills and I took my Advil. And then I felt better. Immediately. Well, not immediately, but like pretty quickly my pain started to subside because Advil is very, very effective for my migraines. I realized I won a lottery there. But if I can have that experience with a bottle of pills, to the point that I have a small crisis thinking I overdosed on like a very dangerous drug to overdose on, and like freak out and realize like, wait, no, I'm fine. If I can have that experience about pills, I have, you know, like, obviously the human brain can do this for other things too, such as like spiritual experiences. I can tell the Jeff the Killer story of mine. That one's a little bit different. I'd like, because I know, Sparrow, that you have some mental health stuff, like the cluster A, I think you said it was. I get the clusters mistaken sometimes, but I don't have any sort of diagnoses that causes hallucinations. That was just me purely being in so much pain and wanting so desperately to have pills that I imagined taking pills to be in less pain. But yes, I just wanted to tell that story to kind of illustrate how experiences can be shaped by our minds and we can really twist reality. But if we study the evidence, like I said, there was no cup, my head still hurt, the bottle of pills was closed, and my heart wasn't racing, and I wasn't experiencing signs of overdose. So I then had to, despite what I believed in and despite my experiences, I then had to extrapolate with that evidence what must have happened. You have a story, let me on. Not today. We're just gonna do it. We're just gonna do a crim time because I want to keep this today simple. Just because I've been having a rough time streaming. So yeah, just gotta keep it simple today. Sorry guys. If atheism is just an opinion, why do you behave like it's a fact? Okay, but okay. All right, let's unpack this for a second. If atheism is just an opinion, why do you behave if it's a fact? Okay. I also believe that, you know, I'm trying to think of, like, I also believe that pepperoni pizza is the best pizza. And I behave like it's a fact because when I go to order pizza, I'm only going to get pepperoni pizza. I'm going to get my favorite, which is pepperoni, every single time I go to maybe I'll mix it up a little bit, but for the most part, when I go to get pizza, I know what I like, I know what my opinion is, so I'm going to continue to behave as if... What do you mean? It's such an odd question. Let's just take God out of this for a second. If your favorite color being black is just an opinion, why do you behave it as like it's a fact? Well, why would I dress in yellow? If my opinion is that black is a better color and I like wearing it more. That doesn't mean that, like, somebody who wears yellow is wrong. But I'm not gonna like change my behavior. What? Okay. Okay. So this doesn't logically follow through. How do I explain stigmata? If there are some mind makes it real explanations for physical injuries forming on their own from intense belief. I also am gonna be real. I don't know anybody that's ever personally experienced stigmata that I trust as a rational person. Yeah, there absolutely is placebo and stuff like that. But, like, if somebody really believes and they're really that delusional, they could self-harm and then, like, act as if it's true later and just lie. Humans lie all the time. I think that it's more likely that every single person that has experienced stigmata has, like, it has been self-inflicted and then they lie about it. I think that's probably, you know, equally, like, way more likely than stigmata being true. Okay, anyway. So let's actually address question 26. If atheism is just an opinion, why do you behave like it is a fact? So, atheism is a belief, not an opinion. For one thing. And again, I think that we should act as if the scientific discoveries that we have made is true, because it helps us learn more about ourselves, about the nature of the world, and how to create a better future, and understand the human mind, and understand our history, and understand the earth, and how to protect it. We need to behave like those things are a fact, because they are facts. Whether or not you believe in God doesn't really affect that. There's another part of this too. If you believe in a God that is, like, keeping tally marks, like, you know, like, Protestant versus Catholic, Protestants believe that it's just faith, Catholics believe that it's faith and works. I realize that. Let's just, we got some Catholics in the chat today, so let's go with the Catholic viewpoint, even though this was definitely made by a Protestant. But, for example, if you go through life believing that, you know, St. Peter is keeping a tally mark of all your good and bad deeds, and you don't experience your life to the fullest because you think that after you die something awful could happen to you, you're gonna lead a lesser life, depending on, you know, what your religion says, and I think that's really sad. um Whereas, like, if I just live the life that I want to, um I want to be a good person because, you know, like, I don't want to hurt anybody, and I want, like, the impact I make upon the world to be better. You know, I want the world to be a better place when I leave it than when I came into it. Like, I want to contribute to it getting better. And again, I think that's because I'm a social animal, and that's what I evolved to do, because that's how we continue the proliferation of the human species, or whatever comes next. There have been some cases with witnesses where the injuries don't have trademarks of penetration. Okay, but, like, there have also been people that have had group hallucinations. I'm just saying that I don't buy it. I don't think stigmata is true. I think, you know, I just, like, what causes it? Like, why would they have it? And, like, even if Jesus was real, like, what does stigmata even, like, what would God have to gain from stigmata, I suppose? None of these questions are Catholic coded. No, these are obviously absolutely Protestant. This is a Protestant, like, Baptist, Answers in Genesis, like, Ken Ham follower. Absolutely. But I just wanted to use that framework because, it's weird, because Protestants say that it's faith, not good works, that gets you into heaven, and Catholics say that it's faith and good works. And yet evangelicals will say that you have to do good works and you have to behave a certain way, even though they say that that belief is heresy. I don't know. It doesn't really follow through. It just doesn't make sense. Can't wait for question 32. Why did you do 9/11? Alright. How do you square the fact that some of the most evil people in history are atheists? Oh, okay. Adolf Hitler was not an atheist, for one thing. Jim Jones also, I don't think, was an atheist. That's kind of the point, isn't it? Also, you're part of the religion where, very famously, your spiritual leaders diddle kids. So, like, I don't think you really have a fucking... I don't think you really have a... You should be, you know, rocks and glass houses and all that. But also, all of those people are men, so, you know, that means all men are evil. That's such a weird thing to say. Well, Adolf Hitler, he was German, so all Germans are evil, or, like, Mao Zedong, I believe, is Chinese, so therefore all people that are Chinese are evil. You know, it doesn't... I'm sure that they believe that there are 7 days in the week, and that, like, you know, I'm sure they all liked hamburgers or something. Like, that doesn't matter to me. Some of the most evil people in history celebrated Christmas. Some of the most evil people in history, I don't know. This is such, like, a non sequitur, you know? I don't care what a bad person believes. I care about their actions. Why? Evolution. Because there's overwhelming scientific evidence for it. There is no other explanation. for why life behaves in the way it does, other than evolution. Evolution. Uh, wasn't Bundy Mormon? I don't know. Like I said, I don't care what those people believe. I just care that they're bad people. I also don't like spend my time researching evil men. I don't have the evil man autism. What is your evidence for evolution? Okay. Alright. So there is a test that I could do right now if me and my sister were in the room that would prove genetically that we are related. And if I were to produce, and if I would do that test with me and my mom, it would show that me and my mom are genetically related. If I had 100 siblings and I had 100 cousins and I did genetic tests on me and each and every one of them, every single sibling that I had, all 100 would be more related to me and have more genetically in common with me than any of the 100 of my cousins. And you can like boost that up from 100 to 1,000 to 1,000,000 to 1,000,000,000. Every single time you do it, that will just be the case across the board every single time. And if you go back generation to generation to generation, that math will keep equating out. We have more genetically in common with chimpanzees than chimpanzees have in common with gorillas or bonobos, etc. And they have more genetically in common with us than they do with gorillas or bonobos or any of those or any of those things that we kind of consider to be great apes. More so than mice do with rats or dogs do with wolves. No, wait, no, I don't think dogs and wolves. It's mice and rats, though, for sure. Yet, you know, young Earth creationists especially consider that one kind. You've got Darwin's finches. We have seen bacteria evolve in the lab to be able to eat plastic. Like, in the lab, we've seen that happen. This is not something that they'd ever been able to do before, and then they evolved the trait to do it. So if they can make those little incremental changes, and if you stretch that out to millions of years, all of a sudden, yeah, it becomes pretty easy to believe that, like, a tiny single-cell organism could eventually grab different building blocks and change and make little tiny itty-bitty changes over and over again as it makes copies of itself, as it trades genetic information, to the point that you get a human being. Because that's just how evolution works. Now, yeah, the common cold, the flu, that evolves to defeat our modern medicine every year. Because the weak get wiped out, the strains of those viruses that can't survive in the human immune system anymore get wiped out, and the strains that can duplicate and evolve and then spread their genes out to make a new strain of flu that we need to make a new antidote for every year, sometimes multiple times a year. None of these... Yeah, COVID. Exactly. And you've got things like, and you've got weird little things like the kiwi bird is, closest relatives are things like rhea and ostriches and things like that. And you look at a kiwi bird. Let's look at a kiwi bird. Look at these little guys. What weird little creatures. Let's look at an ostrich. Actually, let's look at an emu. Emu. You can kind of see the similarities, right? Now, if you... Oh. No, I mean, like, that looks good, but that's not what I wanted. Okay, here's our fat little hen. Look at her. She's fabulous. So you would assume if God created these two creatures, we all know what a chicken egg looks like, right? We would assume that these two creatures would probably have, they're about the same size. They'd probably have the same size in eggs, right? If God is real. But the reason I know God doesn't exist is because this is what a kiwi bird egg looks like. You can't tell me that anything that would put an animal through this. No. Look at this. Look at this poor creature. What it goes through. Because ostriches and emus have, here we go. Ostrich, emu, kiwi. And there's a chicken. And I don't know why there's a sea urchin there, but, you know, whatever. You would think that the kiwi's eggs, since they're about the same shape as a chicken and the same size of a chicken, it would be the same, you know, they'd have some size eggs. But no, the egg size is more close to like an emu and an ostrich. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but the way that evolution works is like they keep getting smaller and they're fine. Like they don't have any predators, so they can just fucking like have their guts rearranged by this fucking this fucking monstrosity whenever they get pregnant, and that's fine. It's rib cake. Look at its ribs. Look at that. And it's because it's descended from these guys. From the same animal. Well, probably not these guys directly, but like they have a common ancestor. And if God was real, he would not have allowed this to happen. Like, no, if God... if God's gonna rip their pussies apart like that, you know, like that can't be true. No. Like that doesn't make any sense. Why would you put an animal through that? Look at this poor creature. But anyway. Oh, it sends its organs to the back rooms until they lay the egg. How did the hell did their eggs not evolve to adjust to their size? Because there was no evolutionary pressure to do so. Because they were fine. They were able to lay the eggs without much issue. I'm sure there are things that make large eggs beneficial. Probably less gestation time. So there was no predators on the island, so they just kept the big eggs, and like they didn't need to be big anymore, so they got smaller so they wouldn't need to eat as much, and their eggs didn't because they didn't need to. You've got things like how we have certain nerves that wrap down and up and around instead of going directly from our throat to our brain. Like I can't remember what nerve it is, but we have a nerve that goes down around our heart or our diaphragm, I think, and then goes back up to our brain from our throat to our head instead of taking the path of least resistance, which, you know, if we had a designer, that's what you would do. But it's, you know, when we were different animals and our body plan was a little bit different, it did that, you know, it made sense for it all to be kind of spaced like that. And then as we like grew longer and we stood upright like that, there's no way, there's nothing, you can't like, this isn't spore, right? You can't take something and put it somewhere else on the human body. It has to like move back like on its own, and there's no way, because of how it's twists, there's no way for us to evolve to have that valve or that nerve or whatever to be directly connected. So it's just never, it's always going to be that weird. But yes, if you're new, remember to subscribe and ring that bell, and please consider donating to the Patreon for access to the exclusive Discord. And if you want to do a one-time donation, I also have a Ko-Fi. Also, super chats are great. If you want to give me super chats, but I will see the Ko-Fi and Patreon stuff more quickly. I think it's Patreon. I actually don't know. I think so now, yes. But anyway, consider supporting me and the content that I do if you like this video. Anyway, thank you, Boggle, for reminding me. Let's keep going. Have you ever observed evolution? I mean, have I seen with my own eyeballs? I haven't been around long enough, but listen, if I'm walking in the snow and I look down at the snow and I see a person-shaped outline next to a patch of ice, I'm going, you know, somebody probably slipped on that ice and fell face first in the snow. There's direct evidence of it. Or if I'm like, again, walking, I love this analogy. If I'm walking out in the snow and I see a set of footprints, I'm like, oh, somebody's probably been here before. If I go into the woods and I see trash in the woods, if I see like a crunched up garbage can, pop can, and like some chip bags, I'm like, oh, somebody's probably been here. Hate that. If I see a bowl or a plate that's dirty in the sink, I'm like, you know what, somebody probably ate off of this bowl or this plate, even if I didn't see them do it. Evolution has left evidence behind in our geology and in our genetic code and in the world around us that makes it very clear that it happened. I didn't need to watch it happen myself. Like, that can't happen over one lifetime just for various reasons. It's just, if humans could live for as long as evolution took to happen, then evolution wouldn't happen. But anyway. Do I believe in abiogenesis, panspermia, or creation? I find panspermia interesting as a concept, but more as a storytelling thing. It's possible it happened, but it just, you still need to explain that, like, how it like, even if panspermia was true, abiogenesis would have to be a thing that happened somewhere else. So I do believe the origin of life as we know it is abiogenesis. And for those of you that don't know, I will explain what these terms mean. Abiogenesis means that organized chemicals that were not previously alive became alive. And panspermia is the belief that somewhere out in space there was like a rock or something, or like a meteor, and it crash landed on Earth, and that's where life came from. And the idea is that life is very rare and only maybe happened once or twice, and then that origin of life is floating around in space and maybe broke apart and like scattered everywhere. That's panspermia. Yes, sperm is in that name very intentionally so. I think it's really interesting as a storytelling technique, and not to be too much of a nerd, but one of my favorite, actually, if you think about it, both of my favorite things, Kingdom Hearts and Evangelion, the origin of life in those worlds is panspermia. So it's very interesting from a storytelling perspective. But I don't, like, even if it's what happened, like, abiogenesis would have had to have happened somewhere. And because I kind of think of it this way. Imagine you're putting a puzzle together. It's a 100-piece puzzle. and we have 90 of the pieces. Let's just say, okay, I'll be generous. We have 50 pieces of this 100-piece puzzle. And we've put it together, and we're pretty sure the puzzle is of an elephant. We can make a pretty good educated guess that this is an elephant, and we can see the eye and the tusk and the ear here, so we can kind of probably make an educated guess at this part there's probably a trunk here. It would be silly to think that, oh, well, you know what? I bet instead of a trunk, the elephant in this puzzle has a pink lawn flamingo instead of a trunk. And it's like, that is a weird assumption to make. Not one that I would make. I guess technically I can't prove it's not true because I don't have those pieces of the puzzle where the trunk goes. But, like, I know what an elephant looks like, and I know theoretically, like, that I know how puzzles work. So, like, there's probably an elephant trunk there because the rest of the elephant's head is also there. We just don't have the pieces that show the trunk, but we can make an educated guess that it's there. We know that chemicals can organize and form really complex structures that are seemingly unexpected, but it happens all the time in labs and in other environments. And we know that life can come from very simple organisms and become more complicated. We have not witnessed a very complex structure turning into life. But we can make an educated guess, like, even though we don't have that string, that little piece of the puzzle, we can make an educated guess that can happen. Theoretically, it's possible, even if we have not witnessed it. And I hope one day we do get to witness it and we don't take advantage of it too much. But that's kind of like how I like to think about it. Because we've gotten close. And we kind of know what it would look like. We just haven't seen it yet. Also, let's imagine for a second that those missing pieces are made out of sweet, sweet chocolate. And every time somebody makes those pieces, somebody that really likes chocolate comes up and gobbles them all up. And that's kind of the tricky issue with abiogenesis. The reason that it hasn't happened more than once is because whenever those materials are gathered in one place for life to start being created from abiogenesis, because life is basically everywhere on Earth, other life forms, simple and complex, will gobble up all those resources before it has a chance to become a living organism. If that makes sense, right? I'm not really sure what analogy to make there, but like, yeah. Oh, I got one. So theoretically, if I left an egg on a really hot rock in the jungle, or on a big flat rock on the jungle, it is possible that, like, it could, like, something could hit it, it could smack open, and it could, like, spread out over that big flat rock, and the sun could come just up above and fry the egg. And you would have a fried egg. And, like, well, that's kind of cool. Theoretically, it's possible. I just, you've never seen an egg fry itself, basically. What's likely to happen if you leave an egg in a jungle is, like, a predator will come around and they'll eat the egg before it has a chance to fry itself. And that's kind of what happens in situations on Earth where it's possible that abiogenesis could happen again. The resources are just gobbled up by bacteria and fungus and, like, even, like, animals before it has a chance to actually happen again. Because it takes a very long time for organized chemicals and structures to become living organisms. Alright, I'm gonna catch up on Super Chat. Hey Billy, what was your favorite part of Crimson Ender stream? I like the part where Crit made fun of the kiwi bird for a long time. Hey, leave me alone. Thoughts on panpsychism? I don't know what that is, but I'm gonna look it up. Panpsychism. I'm probably not spelling it right. We're gonna Google. philosophy of mind, the view that the mind or a mind-like aspect is a fundamental, ubiquitous feature of reality. Whew. It's I think it feels very I think therefore I am. And that okay, so that like you need like a subjective creature to observe reality for it to be real. It's interesting, but hmm. It's interesting. I guess it depends on your definition of reality. Do I believe that if there wasn't a mind, these things wouldn't physically be happening? Like, I mean, like, no. Like, I think that regardless of if there was a mind or not, that, like, obviously I don't think that would stop, like, you know, the sun from existing or, but if, like, if you go into the whole I think, therefore I am thing, if you have nothing to think, then you can, you know, it gets a little complicated. It's interesting to think about, for sure. I don't know if that's hello. Where's my music? Come on. There we go. All right. Interesting. You're watching the stream in chemistry class? Interesting. Fun. That's fun. If you believe in abiogenesis or panspermia, where's your evidence? Because if you like kind of rewind evolution, then it makes sense that we started from a single cell organism and that had to come from somewhere. And we have seen chemicals come together and form organized structures that aren't alive. And we have seen very simple living structures that resemble those organized, you know, like they're two, it's like one missing link in this chain, or a couple missing links in the chain, perhaps. I'll be generous. So like I don't know what to say. I feel like I answered that question quite thoroughly already. What was the first life form? It was probably a very simple thing that could reproduce itself. Probably made copies of itself in some way by interacting with chemicals and proteins around it. Where did the first life form come from? It probably came from an organized structure of chemicals and proteins. Could the first life form reproduce on its own? It would have to. By definition, that's what life has to be able to reproduce itself to be alive. So definitionally, yes, it would have to reproduce on its own, probably asexually. No, it would have to be asexually, I think. Did the first life form have DNA? No. DNA hasn't existed for that long in terms of life. DNA is probably, it's a protein structure in and of itself that was probably absorbed or eaten by a bigger protein structure or a bigger like organism. And just like yeah. So no, probably not. RNA actually has existed longer than DNA. But no, the first life form definitely did not have DNA, but it probably had something similar that served as a basic, like some sort of thing in the nucleus that made copies of itself. But yeah. Did the first life form seek out food, or did it use photosynthesis? It probably didn't consciously do anything. It probably interacted chemically with the proteins, and it was definitely born in like a protein-rich environment that would have been like, it basically would have just had to have to sit there and absorb proteins from, you know, the environment around it, to use that to create building blocks, make more of itself, and that sort of thing. You know what else is the first life form? My mom. Thank you for the super chat page. But like, you know, like that was probably caused either by heat or the sun heating things up is probably what helped to enable the absorption of those proteins and chemicals. This is an interesting conversation. Are viruses alive? Technically not, because they can't reproduce itself. Like viruses, what they do is they go into cells and they turn the cell into a factory. You know, basically it's like, you know, it's just like a bundle of proteins that kind of like drifts around, attaches to cells, and then injects its genetic information into the cell, and then the cell then makes more viruses because the virus has changed the cell fundamentally. So no, technically not. Why do you believe in the Big Bang Theory? Because the universe is slowly expanding all the time, and if you run that into reverse, it's eventually going to be extremely small. Like, you just have to, like, if I were to hit the rewind button on the universe, it would get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then eventually it would, like, because I am assuming, and I don't think this is, like, a unfair assumption to make, that, like, the observations that we make about the universe go back and forth the same, like, you know, like, will make sense temporally. I don't think, like, a million years ago, the natural laws of the universe were different than they are today. There's no reason for me to believe that. Like, we've never seen natural laws change. There's no evidence to suggest they ever changed. Therefore, they're probably the same. Therefore, the universe is expanding, and with all the, you know, laws of physics and natural laws, if it's expanding, it's probably always been expanding. And if we run expansion in reverse, it's gonna shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink into singularity, which is where everything would have come from. Bazinga. Yeah, is Big Bang a debate topic? It really feels like a kid asking if Santa is real. Yeah. Where's your evidence for the Big Bang? I just explained it. The universe is expanding right now, and if we ran that in reverse, it would shrink back into a point. And there is no reason for me to believe that, you know, something changed to have made those observations be what they are, but that wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, the evidence is that the universe is expanding, and therefore it probably expanded from a point if we run it back from the beginning of time. Did you observe the Big Bang? No, but I also, again, didn't observe somebody walking through the snow to put down footprints, but I have a pretty good assumption that, you know, a person was probably walking in the snow. So I have observed evidence of the Big Bang Theory. Or I guess not personally, I suppose. Well, I used to be into astronomy, not astrology. You know, so I've looked through a few telescopes and I've read a few books in my time. But yeah, yeah, we have observed that the universe is expanding, so, and I trust the people that are experts on that. And I'm sure that if I really wanted to right now, I could observe the universe expanding myself. But anyway. Why do you believe the Earth is millions of years old? Because the evidence says that it does. There is no evidence on the contrary. Where is your evidence for the Earth being millions of years old? Okay. This is limestone. What this is it's a bunch of It's a bunch of little crustaceans, tiny microscopic crustaceans and little sea animals that get crushed into stone under the weight of the ocean and other such things. This is just one thing that has happened, but for limestone to exist, this needs to have, like, this is made out of dead animals. And it'd be kind of weird for there to be rock that is made out of dead animals. Like, there's just too many of these dead animals to account for, and too much limestone, because limestone's everywhere. And for this to exist, the earth has to be millions of years old. And there's a bunch of other things, such as the amount of, like there's carbon dating, things like the Great Canyon. And for any of those to have happened, we need millions of years to account for those geological changes. And if you were to shrink them down to 6,000 years, the amount of energy it would take to create things like limestone and things like the shift in the continents, and for like radial decay to work the way that it does, that we know that it does, because we use carbon decay to detect where oil is so that we can find oil, and that's just a fact that we use. For all of that to be true, and for it to have happened within the time span that young Earth creationist says that it does, it would not only boil off the ocean, but it would melt the granitic crust of the Earth several times over, as one of my favorite YouTubers, Guts at Gibbon, says many times. It's the heat problem, and there's just like so much other evidence, that it's the only explanation. But anyway. How old are you? I'm 32. Why do you reject the historical flood as described in Genesis? Because there's no geological evidence that a worldwide flood happened. There was plenty of local floods, and I'm sure that a local flood happened and people told stories about it, and it became like a part of a sort of cultural phenomenon for the area. But I don't think that like a global flood happened. There's no evidence to suggest that. Actually, evidence goes against that happening. I believe there were First Nations people on this continent that I live on long before the flood happened, supposedly. And they wouldn't be here. They wouldn't be here if there was a global flood like that. So, which is my people. So it makes no sense. What is your evidence the flood didn't happen? I mean, I just said so. Why do you reject the story of the Garden of Eden? Oh boy. Because it's a fairy tale and it doesn't make any sense. Where's your evidence that the Garden of Eden didn't exist? I'll give you a simple one. Snakes can't talk. They do not have tongues with which to speak. Like their throats and their tongues are not shaped in a way that can produce vocal sounds. There's no way for them to speak. So there would have been no way for a snake, because it wasn't Lucifer, it wasn't Satan, it wasn't the devil, it was just a snake, according to the Bible. So yeah, BT dubs for people that say that Lucifer was the snake. No, according to the Bible, absolutely not. The Satan / Lucifer / the devil was never a snake. The snake was always just a snake, and snakes can't talk. And we've never observed them talking or vocalizing. There is no physical way for them to talk or vocalize. So that's one little thing that I that kind of pokes a hole in that. And clearly the God was not speaking through the snake, because it was telling them to go against God. So, you know. Just a little one. Why do you reject the sacrifice that Jesus made? Was it a sacrifice, though? I think a dude that was spreading, like, what was considered in the day to be, like, sacrilegious and blasphemous, got arrested for a crime of being a blasphemer and for being a public nuisance and for indoctrinating people, and then he got killed for it, and then he made a religion out of it. I don't know if that was a sacrifice. Jesus never did anything for me. And also, if you read the passage in the Bible, Jesus didn't want to go through with that. Like, he said, like, please don't kill me. Sacrifice has to be made willingly. And Jesus didn't want to die. If you actually read the Bible. And he begged to be spared. But anyway. Where's your evidence that Jesus wasn't crucified? Oh, I never said that. I'm sure that there was a guy named Yeshua that was crucified for indoctrinating people into a blasphemous sect of Judaism. I'm absolutely sure that that happened. I just don't think that, like, it meant anything beyond it being a symbol to people. And that's fine. If it's a symbol to you, that's fine. But, like, and I don't think that he should have been crucified, to be fair. But I'm sure that a guy that whoever we think of when we say Jesus of Nazareth, I'm sure a guy like that was killed at that time for the crimes that it says in the Bible that he was crucified for. Why do you reject the resurrection of Jesus? If you actually read those passages, they're very inconsistent. They contradict each other. So this was probably just a story that a bunch of people were telling. Different stories different people were telling that eventually became an amalgamation of the Jesus myth that we know today. Let's keep going. Where is your evidence that he didn't rise from the dead 3 days later? That's evidence is something that you have to prove. Again, you're asking me to prove a negative. That's not how it works. You're the one who has to prove that he did rise from the dead. You have to prove the resurrection. And you can't. Nobody has ever rose from the dead after 3 days. In normal circumstances. I don't even think, like, I think 3 days is even too long for, like, things like hypothermia. I know hypothermia can prolong somebody's life if they've died of hypothermia, but yeah, this has never happened before, never happened since. And all of the stories we have of it happening are extremely inconsistent and don't make any sense. Why do you deny the I'm gonna go to the super chat first. Wow. Rome was very crucifixion happy. It was a punishment specifically to publicly punish dissidents. It was a colonizer showing their force in the most brutal way possible. Absolutely. Absolutely, Bogalonk. Thank you for the super chat. Okay. This is a loaded fucking question. Gwen. Ooh. I'm sure both of these people were based on real people. I just don't think that they had any ties to God because God doesn't exist. And I will, out of the sign for respect to my Muslim viewers, not say the prophet's name. It's fucking crazy. Do you celebrate Christmas? If I was on my own and my family didn't celebrate Christmas, no, I would not celebrate Christmas. Um, I only go out to my families and hang around with them and get them gifts to show them that I love them. It's a cultural holiday at this point. My mom doesn't even really believe. My grandmother does, but like, it's at this point it's just an excuse to hang out with my family. It's not one that, like, there's some, I mean I get in the Christmas spirit sometimes. I won't deny that. It is the concept of celebrating generosity and family and closeness, and like, yeah, sure, that's a great thing to celebrate. I also celebrate Halloween, and I don't believe in ghosts or ghouls or goblins or whatever. I just like having just an excuse to dress up and like eat candy. This is a weird question. Did you know that Christmas is a Christian holiday commemorating the birth of Jesus? Yes, I did. Did you know that All Hallows Eve is a day to chase away ghosts from bewitching your home? I don't believe in either of those things, but I celebrate the holiday because there's a cultural aspect to it as well. Do you say Merry Christmas? Sometimes. Sometimes I say Happy Christmas. Sometimes I say Happy Holidays. If I'm talking to somebody that doesn't celebrate Christmas and I know they celebrate Hanukkah, I'll say Happy Hanukkah. But yeah, I say Merry Christmas sometimes if it's appropriate. Why do you want to prevent people from that? I don't. If you want to say Merry Christmas, go ahead. I think it's a bit weird to say it to somebody that doesn't celebrate it. And if you're in a workplace, I think that it's a good idea to say Happy Holidays just because you don't know. I think it's more inclusive to say Happy Holidays, but if you are specifically wanting to say Merry Christmas or Happy Christmas, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to scold you. Say whatever you want to say. I don't care. Oh my god, this is crazy. Why do you want to force people to say Happy Holidays? I just said that I didn't. I think it's more inclusive and more thoughtful to your, like, non-Christian friends, but, like, you can, if you want to say Merry Christmas, I'm not gonna, you can do whatever you want, my dude. Do you celebrate Easter? I mean, I might buy, like, chocolate if it's on sale, but no, generally I don't celebrate Easter. Did you know that Easter is a Christian holiday commemorating the resurrection of Jesus? I did. Yes and no. It also, like, Passover and, like, Lent and, like, a little bit complicated. It's just kind of like a holiday that was sort of taken over to commemorate that. But yes, I am aware that Easter commemorates the resurrection of Jesus, and it just so happens, air quotes, to fall on, like, similar days as Passover and some pagan religions. So, oof. Do you say God bless you when someone sneezes? Usually not, actually. I definitely don't say God bless you. I sometimes say bless you. But usually I don't say anything when somebody sneezes. I might be like, wow, what a kitten sneeze, or like, wow, what a dad sneeze. I usually, that might be the autism though. Where I kind of sometimes, like, there's no, like, saying bless you doesn't really do anything. So I usually don't say it. Why do you want people not to say bless? I don't, like, people have... And that, that's just what people say when you... We are begging the question today. Why do you want to take prayer out of school? Because prayer doesn't belong in school. You can't account for all people's spirituality and religions. If you go to private Catholic school and there's prayer, fine. Like your parents are paying for you to be there, but like if you're at a secular school, there, you shouldn't be leading prayers there for the children. But if like a kid wants to like say grace before they eat, or if somebody's Muslim and wants to go pray on their do their little daily prayers, that's fine. Like as individuals, I think we should support people's cultural practices, um but we don't need to be instructing kids to pray. I also don't think we should be doing anything. I also don't think that we should be doing like the Pledge of Allegiance. Now there is something to be said about having a morning routine in school that's the same every day, and honestly, like singing the national anthem and whatever, like that's a really good consistent thing for kids to expect when they come into school, and it will like switch them. It's just like a transition thing from like, oh, I'm like it's before school and I'm goofing off, and oh, now we're doing our national anthem, and after that it's right to lessons. And it's a psychological trick for kids, but you could replace that with anything. um but it works because you do that every day for every year the kid is in school, and it's always this consistent thing that we train them on when they're really small. But we could replace that with anything. It wouldn't have to be the Pledge of Allegiance, doesn't have to be a prayer, but it can be anything, to kind of break, to have like a break, to say, okay, so before this we weren't settled and we were just coming into class and filtering in, and after this it's school time. um but again, that could be anything. It doesn't have to be prayer. It could be literally anything. It could be like taking a roll call. It can be um playing a little song. Um we when I wasn't in school, but I was at a school based program, and we would go over our five like rules of the room, like like be respectful, be kind, tell a grown up when you go to the bathroom so that we know where you are. Keep your hands to yourself, clean up after yourself. We would go over those little rules every day, when kids filed in before we started on our daily activity. And it's just a little psychological trick that we do. And humans tend to like that routine, not just when they're kids, but when they're older. It feels nice to be like, okay, everybody's filtered in, sat down at the table, and we're going to say grace. And it kind of acts as like a consistent, dependable routine and tradition where, okay, beforehand we were kind of settling in, and now after we do this one thing, then we're eating dinner. you know we like that sort of thing. We like that sort of ritual as human beings because it means that there's some dependable stuff. We're coming together and we understand each other, and there's a communication. So psychologically, prayer is really interesting, in terms of saying grace and making prayer a part of a routine. But it doesn't have to be prayer. It can be anything. Ooh, also, I was working at a summer camp that, it had previously been Christian, but it is now more secular. And they used to do prayer before every meal. And then it became, oh, we're going to do like a prayer song where we do a little song. And for a little while, they stopped doing something altogether. And they're like, kids are really rowdy and like they don't listen. But they did when we did the little prayer songs. So let's just sing a song before we go in to eat. And then it started working. And sometimes it would be silly things like the Addams Family song, but like, yay, we're about to eat kind of thing lyrics, or like, like if you've ever been to Bible camp or any summer camp, you probably know what I mean. But like, I personally felt a little bit weird that they were secularized versions of like prayer songs, but they serve a purpose of like establishing a routine where, we are communicating to this group of kids that we're about to eat. So psychologically, very useful to have those routines. It doesn't have to be prayer. And And again, I think kids should be able to pray when they're in school on their own if they want to, and they should not be prevented or from doing so, and they should not be get in trouble for praying, and they should be given space. Like Muslim children, who I believe have to pray at several times a day, at a certain schedule, should be allowed to have those times to like go and pray for a few minutes. But anyway. Routine isn't a bad thing. But let's go. Oh. Should a teacher be fired for talking about God in their class? No. I don't think they should be fired. I think if it starts taking over and replacing secular lessons, I think that there should be some questions asked and what effect that's having. But yes, Monday through Friday, when you're at school, talk about secular topics and facts and things that we know for sure, and literature and arithmetic and things like that. You should not be using your classroom as a pulpit to preach. But if it comes up in like a philosophy class, yeah, you can talk about God there. There's no reason that he should come up in a science class. Like if you are a biology teacher, you should not be talking about God. Should a teacher be fired for talking about Jesus in their class? Same answer. Should a teacher be fired for talking about Muhammad in their class? Same answer. All of these, if it's relevant, yeah, sure. If you're talking about like sociology or anthropology or like if you're in like a religion class, like I dated somebody who went to a school where they offered courses about different religions of different world religions, and like obviously like you're gonna talk about God and Jesus and Muhammad the prophet. I apologize. I don't mean to be disrespectful. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that. If the answer to the last one was no, why is Muhammad okay, but Jesus isn't? You're assuming the answers to my questions. I said no to all of them. Why do you want to censor opinions that you disagree with? I don't. But I think that all opinions have a time and a place. And I think if you're a teacher, your personal opinions shouldn't be affecting the way that you teach and operate in a classroom. You should be teaching children facts, not fiction, unless if you're in an English course, I suppose. Yeah, I don't want to do that. If you're not hurting anybody, if those opinions aren't harmful to anyone, you can think whatever you want to think. You can express whatever you want to express, as long as you're not being dangerous or harmful or like hurting other people when you do that. Why do you repeat information from scientists when you have no idea what you're talking about? I try to only talk about things that I understand. But for the things that I do understand, comes from the same people who say things that I don't understand. So I tend to believe that based on the evidence that you've presented to me so far, you've proven yourself to be trustworthy and someone that I can believe in. So when you say this thing that maybe is a little bit outside of my knowledge base that I don't really grasp, I'm going to continue to believe you. And I do that. Like, I don't really understand how cancer works. I do kind of, but not really. I don't understand how certain math works, but math has never proven me wrong before, and the concepts that I do understand make sense to me. And so when that same person that has communicated to me ideas that I do understand explains something to me in their field of expertise, that is a little bit beyond my skill level and my knowledge base, I trust they know what they're talking about because they have no reason to lie to me. Um Came back for 69. Yippee. Thank you for the super chat page. Christian persecution complex is a hell of a drug. Remember when I told you about my state superintendent mandating all schools include the Bible in every lesson, specifically the Trump Bible? That's crazy. That's something else. All right, let's keep going. Why do you believe something can come from nothing? Are we talking about the Big Bang Theory right now? There is a bunch of theories that answer that, but mathematically it actually checks out, because for all matter there is antimatter. So if you have my Photoshop, give me a second, let me see if I can illustrate this. Bam. This is just one theory, but one that I find personally quite interesting. Let's move my my little thing here. Photoshop. Here we go. All right. So let's say that this is nothing. Purple represents nothing. And let's say that this represents so let's see. How, if you add these two together, you're back to where you started. And this is a very simplified sort of idea, all right? But if you say like the red circle is matter and the blue circle is antimatter, mathematically it still checks out. There is no reason why theoretically you couldn't have thing and opposite thing come out of nothing, because it is the same. It's this, like, even though it doesn't look the same, this and this are the same, because we know that one, and this would be a positive one, or I guess no, I'm going in the wrong direction. I'm being logically inconsistent. Oh no. 1, and this would be positive 1. Take away 1 equals 0. We know that these two things are the same. Now, I'm sure there are probably mathematicians and physicists that are bashing their heads in, but like, this is just an idea that has been floated on to like explain how we haven't really gained or lost matter or energy because we have antimatter and stuff like that. Just as an example. So can something come from nothing? I mean, if you have something and you have the opposite of nothing, that is the same as nothing. is my answer to that. This is what. This wasn't really anything about electrons. It's more. It's yeah. It's a little more basic than that. Um, Thermodynamically, that's how. Yeah. Also, do we have? Wait a minute. 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 Do we have a theist in chat right now? Welcome. Um, praise Satan. Are you a Trump head? Yeah, I am trying to explain like matter and antimatter, sort of. Yeah. Uh, I love eating babies. It's my favorite thing to do. And also, I want to turn all of your children gay, and transgender, and atheist, and communist. Sorry, I just kind of like, I kind of like, yeah, I know. I mean, like, listen, I don't mind. Sorry. Um, I didn't mean theist because I know there's a few theists in the chats. I mean idiot. Also, if Lucifer was real, I'd kiss him on the mouth with tongue. Anyway, let's keep going. How do you rationalize the belief that something can come from nothing? I just did. Where's your evidence that something can come from nothing? Um, that's a little bit beyond my understanding of the world and the universe. Um, but again, mathematically, it checks out. There is no actual explanation as to that not being something that could happen. And you're probably gonna be like, yeah, but that's so unlikely. But if you have an infinite amount of time, very unlikely things will eventually happen. And if they didn't happen, we wouldn't be around here to talk about it. Um, so something very unlikely happened. Um, and we're around here to talk about it. Uh, so I don't know what to say other than like I feel like I've rationalized quite a bit of why I think the way that I do. And also going back to the expanding universe, and the fact that it is expanding right now at this very second. If we were to rewind that in reverse, uh, it would shrink and it would go back into a singularity, into a tiny point. Um, because that's the evidence that we have. We have evidence that's expanding at a very like very measurable, very constant rate. So it makes sense to assume that it's always been doing that. And if it's always been doing that, it had to have started from something very small, basically nothing. What happened before that? I don't know. Maybe it's something that expands and contracts like a heartbeat, and like maybe if it contracts to such a small point, some weird n-dimensional situation happens where it continuing to shrink and folding in on itself is actually expanding in another direction, like another like I again like I I'm having I don't have the I understand some of the concepts of that, but I don't have the vocabulary to describe what I'm talking about. But oh, I have a good example. I have a good example actually. I have exactly something that I can point to when I do that mathematically that I can do on my computer right now. It's going to be collapsed into two-dimensional space. But let's go back to our little Photoshop thing. So, um, okay. All right. Let's see. We have, we have this little guy. This handsome fella right here. All right. So we got this little guy. And he's slowly slowly expanding at a very constant rate. All right? Very, very slowly expanding at a constant rate. And we're watching that. So if we reverse this and we reverse this and we reverse this, he gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. But eventually, when I'm continuing to do the same action that previously was shrinking it, but now it's expanding it in a different dimension where it's reversed and flipped. Which is something that's very interesting to me. So maybe that's what happens. That's what happened, is that, like, at the very, very beginning, it had shrunk down into something that was, I don't know. You know what I mean? Inflation. I like me. Crim. Anyway. But yes, I hope I've explained myself. Uh anyway. Have you ever observed something coming from nothing? I mean, no, I shan't. No, not personally. I think that it's very, very unlikely for that to happen. So no, I haven't personally observed that. No. Can you believe something without evidence? If it comes from a trustworthy, well, I suppose that something being trustworthy necessarily means that there is evidence that I can trust what they say. No, I can't believe in something without evidence. Do you believe in extraterrestrials? Okay. Do I believe in little green men from outer space that come to Earth in saucers and abduct cows and, like, tickle people's prostates for the first time and maybe give them a bit of a sexual awakening? No, I don't believe in that. But do I believe that somewhere out in the cosmos there might be somebody just like me asking these same questions with just as little capability to contact me as I have to contact them? Sure. This universe is very large, and I have no reason to think that humans are special or that Earth is special. I'm sure that we're not the only living things in the entire universe. That would be quite a thing to assume. If there is life out there, it's probably not exactly like us. It's probably quite different from us. I'm sure that most extraterrestrial life is very simple and probably just something that resembles Earth's bacteria and plankton and stuff like that. That's probably what most life in the universe is like, but I'm sure that in the right circumstances, there is intelligent life as well. Maybe more intelligent than us, maybe more like animals, animal-like intelligence. I'm sure it happens all the time. We just don't have the technology to measure it and see it. Ba-ba-bum. Do you believe in ghosts? Absolutely not. I do not believe in ghosts. Do you believe in demigods? No, I do not. Do you believe in dinosaurs? Yes. Technically speaking, this is a dinosaur. Birds are dinosaurs. Don't fucking get me. Don't get me started, chat. I don't want to have this conversation today. I'll fucking kill you. Where's my music? There we go. Jesus is a demigod is a really fun thing to say. Christian 77 does my OC count. Do you believe? Oh my. Okay, this guy's a nut job. The Earth is round. I don't just believe the Earth is round. I know the Earth is round. I live very close to the ocean and have my entire life, and I have seen boats come in and go out, and I can watch them as they go around the curvature of the Earth and they disappear. If I look up into the sky, I can see that clouds, like, looking at the clouds, like, why do clouds descend into the ground when you're looking, you know what I mean? If the clouds were above us, they would never touch the ground. They would all be above us at the same height, and it would be like looking up at the ceiling. When you're in a very large room, it never looks like the ceiling is... Anyway. I didn't realize we'd be going here. Okay, here we go. Do I believe in I believe in miracles. I believe that really unlikely things can happen, and I think that humans will rationalize them however they want to, and miracles is one of the things they use to rationalize it, but no, I don't believe in a metaphysical miracle. Do you believe in anything supernatural? You know what? CW did them boys dirty. They really sent that man to super hell for saying I love you. We didn't even get to see them kiss. No, I don't believe in anything supernatural at all whatsoever. Period. Why do you accept whatever science says no matter how ridiculous it is? Science isn't ridiculous. Can you give me an example? Why do you accept whatever the government... You came to the wrong town, sir. I'm an anarchist, baby. I do not believe whatever the government says. That's a good one, though. That's a good one. But yeah, I don't. Do you have any friends or family members that are Christian or religious in some capacity? Absolutely, I do. I have lots of friends or friends and family members that are Christian or religious, both of the Christian faith and of other faiths and religions and cultures. If so, do you love them? Yeah. Where does love come from? Well, you see, again, we are social animals that evolved to preserve and care about and show compassion to our fellow social animals. And that is how we are able to evolve and become what we were. Um, because if we didn't protect and care about, and if we weren't invested in other human beings, we never would have gotten to where we are today. We would have never evolved to be having this conversation, like I said. Is love just a bunch of chemicals reacting in your brain? I mean, lots of things are chemicals reacting in your brain. It doesn't mean it isn't true. Pizza is fucking good. I fucking love pizza. And just because what's happening is that, like, chemicals are reacting to reacting to, like, taste receptors in my tongue and in my nose, and I'm feeling the texture of it in my mouth and in my throat, and I'm feeling that warm fullness in my belly. That doesn't mean it isn't real. Nothing wrong. Like, why are you so scared of chemicals? Do human beings have free will, or is everything predetermined? Ooh. I mean, ugh, that one's a rough one. That's a rough one. Now, okay, so I'm gonna say something that is kind of like a little theory of mine. Um, and I might not make sense. So if I don't make sense, or if I'm saying something that doesn't follow through, then I'm sorry. But my little theory is that what free will is kind of works in the same way that quantum mechanics works, and superpositions. And I believe that I am capable of making different decisions. But there is something that happens on a microscopic quantum level that is decision making. And I believe that, like again, like maybe I'm not making a lot of sense, but I believe that, like, that's where decision making comes from, is those sort of superposition collapsing into one reality, and like then that's the decision that I made. And I think that things can influence those decisions, but ultimately, yeah, I don't know. It's just, that's just kind of how, the way that I figured it, the way that I rationalize it in my brain. I don't know how much sense it makes or if it's scientifically sound, but we don't know really if free will exists for a fact or not. The answer is probably not, but, like, I think my kind of way of thinking about it, you know, I think there is some wiggle room there. I don't know. If anybody is, like, big into quantum mechanics and, like, superposition and physics in chat, please let me know. Do animals have free will? Again, same kind of thing. Their brains tend to be a bit more simple. We often deny their free will, but I believe that, like, if that decision making happens to humans, it's gonna happen to animals too. Ooh, okay, but however, Christians have to answer this question as well. Exactly. Do animals feel pain? Absolutely. They have, like, pain receptors, and they react negatively when they experience pain. Do animals have souls? I don't think souls exist, so. Do you think someone like Indigo Child will show up in this or no? Man, Indigo Child, that's something that I haven't heard in a while. Should animals have rights? Listen, I believe a certain way about animal welfare. And the fact is that most of the animals that we eat and consume were bred to do so, and in a perfect world, most domesticated animals are going to live, you know, if they're treated well, are going to live a much more fulfilling, long, and healthy life than animals in the wild. We have the ability to make their lives so much better than they would out in the wild. And yet, capitalism. Capitalism is kind of like making that an issue. But we live on a planet and we live an existence where animals die to feed other animals. That's been a thing since before humans have existed. So I don't think eating animals is necessarily wrong, but I think that it's cruel to mistreat them unnecessarily. And we have the resources that we can make every domesticated animal's life so much better than it would be in the wild, and we should be making efforts to make that a reality. Now, there are a lot of things on the list that capitalism is negatively impacting that I think we should get to first, but that is one of them. Should people have rights? Yes. Are human beings animals? Yes. Does all life on Earth have a common ancestor? Yes. What is your evidence that all life on Earth has a common ancestor? Because we all have genetic similarities. We can, like, you know, we have things that are genetically in common with all great apes and all mammals and all all mammals and all vertebrates, and then all eukaryotes, and I think I messed that one up. It's vertebrates, then animals, then eukaryotes, I believe. Yes. And we just have, like, certain commonalities and certain structures in our cells and in our DNA and in our RNA and in our systems that it's like we all have, like, these things in common, and, like, the more closely related they are, the more things in common they have. And again, if you hit rewind, you're gonna find, you know, we have a mitochondrial Eve, so to speak. I believe is you know, there is something that was a mother to us all. But anyway. Do you believe that human beings came from monkeys? Not only did we come from monkeys, but we are monkeys. We are catarrhine monkeys. Do you believe that monkeys came from fish? Biologically, fish aren't real. Do I think that a monkey evolved from a goldfish? No. Or anything like that? No. So this doesn't logically follow through, because fish is not it is not a biological category, because there is no definition of what a fish is that doesn't include all terrestrial life. Or all terrestrial animal life, anyway. So fish don't exist, technically speaking, which is something. It is a colloquial term to refer to a specific group of animals in the water. Do you believe... Oh, sorry. I do believe that monkeys came from very distantly from an animal that was once inhabited the water. If, like, that's what this question actually means, sure. Do you believe that fish came from an amoeba? No, because amoeba are not... No. You don't know what an amoeba is. Do I believe that a fish is descended from some sort of single-cell organism? Yes, eventually. A lot of steps between, but eventually, yes. But amoeba are a specific branch of single-cell organisms that have an ancestor in common with the single-cell organism that would go on to be the aquatic creature that would then go on to become a land-dwelling creature that would then go on to become a mammal, that would then go on to become a monkey, that would then go on to become a human. But no, an amoeba did not become a fish. Where did that amoeba come from? Well, the amoeba came from a common ancestor. Like, are some sort... Are amoeba eukaryotes, actually? Let me see. Oh, yeah. They don't... Yeah. They are eukaryotes. Yeah. So, it's a class. It's like a... Yeah. It's a... Yeah. Okay, cool. Interesting. Amoeba describe a lot of unicellular organisms, but they very specifically have, like, certain... There are certain, yeah, but they're not even the same. Yeah, interesting. I'm not super interested in amoeba myself. It is not a branch of life that I take a lot of interest in, so I don't know a lot about them. But I do know that they're not, nothing has evolved from... An amoeba is kind of an end point, an end sort of branch, that isn't even on the same sort of, larger branch of, of fish and monkeys and stuff. But they have mitochondria. Amoeba cells occur not only among the protozoa, but also in fungi, algae, and animals. Oh, okay, so amoeba is like... Oh, it's a specific kind of movement. So... Yeah, so amoeba, it's like they're the ones that have, like, the foot and kind of wiggle. Okay, cool. Interesting. Where did that amoeba come from? It came from it came from another single-celled organism, that was its genetic ancestor. That probably, honestly, looked a lot like an amoeba itself. But if you're asking what the first single-celled organism came from, it came from a group of organized proteins and chemicals, that then was able to start replicating. Because, I mean... That's what organic means. It means it's organized. Yeah. So things will just kind of line up and start making... Here's some bismuth. And they'll just kind of lock together and start making these structures. And, like, you can see this even with, like, microscopic reactions of ice. Like, let me see... Ice crystals microscope. There we go. Here's some water freezing under a microscope, where it's just forming these structures that it just continues to... the ice crystals are bridging and building off of one another, and then using the rest of the water in the environment to make more of itself, right? Crystal structure forming under microscope. I spelt structure wrong. There we go. Here's a little compilation. But yeah, see, look. It's like it's interacting with resources and creating these crystal structures. And if this gets complicated, it involves enough different chemicals and proteins. You can see how that might start breaking off to form more complex ways of proliferating, so to speak. There is a theory that organic life is just a part of the universe, like it's just part of like entropy and chaos. It's like it's a way that chaos is dispersed instead of being like, anyway, very interesting theory. Anyway, that's it. I think that's 100 questions. Thank you for the super chat, Hizaki Kentai. Fish aren't real is now clipped. Thank you. Yeah, please like and subscribe and consider donating on my Patreon or Ko-Fi. And ring that bell. Yeah. So that was fun. Boom, 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 boom. Bum, bum, bum. Ooh, wait a minute. Are we talking about... Hold on. Westlandia, you should watch, or you should you could probably watch the HBO series too. The Golden Compass and the sequels. Really interesting book. And uses dust in its metaphors quite a bit. I think you'd really like it. It's a really good book. Actually, The Golden Compass, I read it when I was deconstructing, and it's what I'd say it made me the person I am today. The book did anyway. How does God not exist? What's the Golden Compass? Ooh, I'm glad you asked. So the series is called His Dark Materials. The Golden Compass is just the first book in the series. It is on, I think it's HBO for Americans, but it's also on a few different things. The HBO series did a really good job of... Okay, IMDb is not going to load for me. So you might recognize this young lady as the girl who played Laura in Logan. And this book was written by Philip Pullman, who was sort of raised in the same traditions as like Tolkien and Lewis, like the authors of The Lord of the Rings and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Chronicles of Narnia series. But he's like a generation after them. And all of these things that Tolkien and C.S. Lewis were celebrating in their books, like the tradition, spirituality, and faith, and religion and Christianity, he is deconstructing it in this series. And does a very wonderful job, I think. So, in this story, we follow Lyra, and in her world, human souls are split into two, and the second half, one half of the soul is within the person, and then the other half is in a sort of animal companion known as a daemon. Or you could, it's sometimes also said that like the daemon itself is the person's soul. It's very good. The CGI animals, probably the best I've seen in modern times. Like, this is CGI. I wonder if you could look at a ad for it. Um, His Dark Materials, ad. Oh, the title sequence is so good. Oh, can we watch the title sequence? I'm gonna get, like, blasted by AdSense, but let's watch. Oh, you can buy it on YouTube. Interesting. Oh, such a good title sequence. Oh, hold on. It's so good. Oh, it gets me excited. I might have to watch it again. Freaking hyped to watch a show. I don't know what will. It's so good. The entire series is currently out and it's really good. Uh, Dominic Noble did a lost adaptation of the Golden Compass movie and show on his channel. Adrian, we're not doing that today. Also, the Golden Compass, HBO's mistake. Interesting. I think HBO did a great job. As somebody, this is one of my favorite books ever. Like, I would say after Wicked, His Dark Materials is my favorite book series. They're my two favorites. Anyway, please watch it. Also, Lin-Manuel Miranda is in it, and, like, I'm not a Lin-Manuel Miranda guy. Like, I don't care for the dude. I don't like his music, but he is perfectly cast. This whole series is perfectly cast. They all look exactly how I imagined them to look. Um, um, Ruth Wilson's character, mwah, perfectly cast. It's all just so very good. And I think you'll like it if you watch it. It's so freaking good. Sorry, I'm getting all excited for one of my favorite shows ever. Much more better adaptation than the Wicked musical. The end was kind of rushed, but maybe the book was like that. Yes and no. I don't want to spoil it, but I think it's intentional. The Bible stops brutal stuff from happening. It changed the world. Okay, let's see. The Crusades. Let's see. Salem witch trials. See what else we've got: the Crusades, Salem witch trials. Uh, let's see. What else do we got at the hands of Christians? Oh, so residential schools were Christian schools. That were. These are just the amount that was recovered, by the way. They found more since. Um, this was just at one school, and this was just the span of a couple decades. 6,509. Um, And then, yeah, 1,300 potential unmarked burials of small children. Um, this is what really fucked me up. Um, these are shoes that are approximately the size and age of the children that died at this specific school at the hands of priests and nuns. Um, and I've been to one of these demonstrations. What they did in my area is they lined them up toe to heel, toe to heel, toe to heel. And it went on for a ghastly amount of time. And some of these little shoes were small enough to fit in the palm of my hand. And for every shoe that you're seeing, a little child's foot would have gone in that shoe, and that little child is dead because of Christians. So, don't talk to me about atrocities that were, that's the Bible. Oh, what? We're justifying... Hello? What do you expect of... Ooh, okay, Westlandia. Goodbye. Conversation over. Oh, I was already hid from the channel. Thank you, moderators. Bye-bye, bitch. That's enough from you. Banned. Any you. But anyway, that's just a theory. No. On that note, does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns? Things that we want to talk about in this vein? But yeah, it was crazy. If you want to rage at me, you feel free to send me asks on Tumblr or whatever. You might have to make an account because I don't think I allow anons right now, but you can get mad at me for not thinking Jesus is a very special boy over in my ask box. Link in the description below. May I ask your opinion to react to all of VTuber graduation Garagura? No. That is so not my thing. Yeah, yeah, no thanks. Do I have a moment for your Lord and Savior, the God Emperor of mankind? Okay, is this like the Warhammer one or the Dune one? Bury Your Gay is when you bury me in a pile of sandwiches, which you should do right now immediately. I will take cash as an alternative. Anyway, this has been a great stream. I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys did too. The Warhammer one. Okay. Absolutely not. I think Warhammer fans don't deserve to have human rights. I think that they should be treated like cattle. If you have participated in Warhammer, I'm gonna send you to the gulag. And you deserve it. You know you deserve it. And you know what? You're a Warhammer fan. You'll probably have a great time. I know what you guys are like. Have I seen or heard of God's Gang? I think... Oh, hello, seagulls. I think I have. It's crazy. Multi-faith animation. I don't even know what to say. All right. Bible Man stream when crew you have you know you want to. Unironically, you guys want to know what the best piece of Christian media is? Unironically, for real, it's these guys. Christians, start putting more money into this. Look at people. What the fuck? I don't like this one. No, VeggieTales genuinely was a very good show. Was doing a lot of interesting things in terms of 3D animation that were like getting around certain limitations where like they just have these shapes that they would deform and they would put all the animation into the eyes and the mouth. I hated this era. Ugly. Who are these people and what have you done to my cucumber and my tomato? What the heck? I don't know who these people are, but they're not my cucumber and tomato. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, very, very interesting things going on in terms of animation at a very early time. In terms of what they were doing. Very funny, very cute, very approachable. Yeah. Genuinely probably the best piece of Christian's children entertainment that's ever existed. And I will, you can quote me on that. Second/first place tie is Prince of Egypt. Prince of Egypt isn't Christian. Prince of Egypt is Jewish. It's made by Jews. And I would say that like the themes in it are more Jewish than Christian because the way that Jews conceptualize that story is very different from how Christians conceptualize that story. Does FNAF count as Christian content? I'm actually working on a script for a Five Nights at Freddy's video right now. And yeah, unironically, absolutely. Yes, it does. And I'll tell you why in the video I'm working on. I've got an outline. I'm about like maybe a quarter of the way done with the script. The Wicked book review is coming. I'm just having a bit of a harder time with it. I probably won't be able to do that once a month like I originally intended. But there will be a couple more Wicked videos coming out this year, covering the books and the movies. But yeah. Anyway, I think I'm gonna wrap up now. A collab with MatPat? No. Matt's retired for one thing, and the one connection I had to MatPat, I think I shot myself in the foot and acted like an entire dork. And that was during Anthony's Kingdom Hearts stream a couple weeks ago. Comic Drake was on, who used to work on the Game Theory channel. And I made such an ass of myself in front of him. And I feel real bad. Because he was genuinely a really cool guy to talk to. And I was such a dork in front of him and Coke Francis, too. I was such a dork when they were around. And I feel bad. Aw, man. Unfortunately, the original creators of VeggieTales were pushed out of their roles in the show recently when they requested more creative control. That stinks. Classic VeggieTales is peak, though. Anyway, I'd like to thank my patrons, Harvey, Hummus, Mohammed, Paige, Boggle, Fiona, Easy Walker, Elias, Liam, Shy, Space Frog, Swampling, and to my staff, Mothers, Squeakers, Boggle, and Sparrow. If you'd like to support me, you can go down to the description below to find my Patreon. You can join the Discord if you contribute to the Patreon for as little as $8 a month. And if you would prefer a one-time donation, you can click on my Ko-Fi instead, and you can set the price yourself. You can also find my social medias down there. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys all in a few days. Bye-bye.